Between the Covers, the show for readers and writers and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, and I have such a treat today. Not only have they authored a book, but we are talking about art today. Parallel Perspectives by Holly Gordon and Ward Hooper is a beautiful, beautiful brush lens collaboration. And I'm so thrilled that you'll be able to get a peek inside the book to see exactly what awaits you and the beautiful artwork inside. So please welcome to the show, Holly Gordon and Ward Hooper. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Oh,
Thank you.
thrilled to have you. Absolutely. And the book is stunning. Stunning.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about how this came to be? Because this is such a unique art book, which we're going to get to see when we take a peek inside.
Well, what is so crazy? You know, like when artists are being creative, it's all process. It has nothing to do with a destination, where we're going or what we're doing. And way back in 2008, I had created this image that wasn't anything at all like anything I had done previously. And so I tucked it away in my Drobo hard drive. And then, being an obsessive social media freak, I was clicking on Facebook and checking things around, and a reporter friend, a freelance writer, who had written about Ward's art independently and had written about my art independently, said to me one day, "Do I know Ward Hooper?" And I said, "No, but I'm going to check him out on social media." So I did. And there, lo and behold, is this painting that Ward did of Long Island City. And right away, it was like, bong, in my brain. Now, where did I tuck away that image?
That was part of my commuter series. I commuted every day. I carried a sketchbook with me.
And so,
and that was the end of the ride at Long Island City.
So I posted it and told Ward that Elise Perlman had suggested him to me. And does he see any similarity between my nightlights and his Long Island City? And he said, yes. And then a couple of days later, he posted these tulips that he had finished painting in an Art League demonstration because he taught.
Was an instructor at the Art League of Long Island for 12 years, so
it was springtime.
One of my demos.
and his students wanted florals, and he posted his painting. Now, he didn't know that I was getting ready to have an exhibition called Tulips at Photo Gallery in Huntington. And so I posted one of my tulip paintings, well, photographs. I call my photographs paintings because they really don't look like photographs. And that's when Ward said, I think we've got something going here. Why don't we meet in person? So that's how it started.
Wow, all through social media and a connection.
Yes, and
amazing. Social media brought us together.
At our age.
And here I am,
brought us together.
About to be 92 in another month.
Yeah, but you were much younger 6 years ago.
Yeah, for some days I feel most days 65, some days 70.
Fantastic.
So Ward gave me instructions to go to this big blue barn in Northport. And as I'm driving to his house the first time, I'm thinking, this community doesn't look like it has a barn. And there, this huge, incredible house opened up before me. And it was a redesigned barn. That was just an absolutely magnificent house.
Right.
A big converted barn, Ward?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. It has It's
It,
open from the floor to the ceiling. It's 40 feet.
Wow, 40
unbelie-
feet.
unbelievable. And when you go into the foyer and you look up, it's the silo. It's just, and then there's a gallery all the way around. It's a marvelous, just an amazing house. So
Wow.
Well, it was a wonderful house to raise a family, and I've been here a long time and still enjoying it.
Fantastic.
And Northwood is an absolutely wonderful little village. I always said it has a bubble over it. It has a cobblestone street with trolley tracks in it, where the trolley track used to ride on. Still there. And Main Street ends up at the harbor with still has commercial fishing boats. A working boatyard today from the 1800s, Seymour's Boatyard, which is a favorite painting location of mine, and Holly has photographed it. So it's just a beautiful, lovely little village, minutes from woods and marshlands, and which you will see enough as we progress.
Fantastic.
and what was so interesting about this, Ward's world was the North Shore of Long Island. And all during this time that he was meeting and painting with his artist buddies, I was traveling all over the world. It was like he brought me into places close to home that I really didn't know existed.
This was unknown territory to Holly.
Fantastic. Well, tell me a little bit about the medium we're going to be looking at, because Holly, you said that yours, you call them paintings, but they're photography, and I want to hear a little more about what you're doing and
Yes.
what Ward is doing.
You know, the problem is, you know, like the world is so accustomed to painting, be it oil or acrylics or watercolors or gouache. But photography is different. In fact, even sometimes it's when people talk about art, they talk about art and photography.
Mhm.
But photography can also be an art form. And there are many genres of photography, like documentary, street, participatory, fashion, food, landscape. But what I've always done with my camera is make it do what I want it to do. And depending upon how I respond to what I see will determine what and how I use my camera. And now technology is changing photography as we know it. And one of the things that I am most sincere about wanting to do, and that's humanize technology. So many people are so accustomed to downloading these apps, and all they have to do is push a button and presto changeo, it turns whatever picture they took with their smartphone or whatever into something, and it's like, oh my goodness, I have created art. Well, the technology is creating it. It isn't really going through the user's head. And when people have said to me, what kind of camera should I use? Should I get? I would say the most important part of a camera is the person who's using it. So I have just, and it started in 1999 when I was still shooting film. And I had taken a picture of a street scene in the Falklands. I loved the textures of the buildings, but I didn't like the electric lines and some other stuff. So I got rid of it using Photoshop. It's like I would do these things intermittently. But once Ward and I started going out and shooting together and talking, when Ward took me to the Victorian house. And he said, Holly, this is where I stood when I sketched my scene. He said, but you know, I didn't like the sign, so I moved it. I didn't like those trees, so I got rid of them. I added this. I changed the colors. I started laughing because it's like, Ward, what you were doing with your painting, that's what I'm doing with my photography. So we started to articulate that there are really so many similarities.
It was amazing.
Between painting and photography, but so often in history, it's an adversarial kind of relationship that painting and photography have. Like once the photographers came on the scene, that was a threat to the painters. And so there came the Impressionists.
When photography came on the scene,
and
absolutely.
It took 10, 20 years for the establishment to recognize Impressionism as a legitimate form of painting. And that's kind of how I feel right now with the photography that I'm doing, because it's so new. People don't really have a vocabulary to talk about it. It's a new art form in transition, which is why I call it photoliminalism. And I've got Ward to thank for this, because it really became solidified during our 6-year journey. And chapter 5 of our book is devoted to photoliminalism.
Wonderful. Ward, tell me a little bit about your art, the mediums that you use, influences you've had before your meeting up with Holly.
Sure.
And into the end.
I commuted every day to New York City to my design firm, and I had a studio at home, and I learned of a workshop his name was Edgar Whitney, and he was a major influence on literally hundreds of watercolor artists. And I started his weekly workshops, and he taught by design principles. And we would go out painting and come back, and then he would do critiques of each and every painting, at which time he showed no mercy. And you never made the same mistake again. So in those years, in the 70s, 80s, almost every professional watercolorist instructor or artist who had written books had studied with Ed Whitney and dedicated their books to Ed. So he was a major influence. Another major influence was the paintings done out on the West Coast by a group of well-known artists. Robert E. Wood was a favorite of mine, and Rex Brandt, who, being on the West Coast, painted these bright, splashy watercolors, very colorful. And I got Robert E. Wood to come to Northport to do a workshop. And Bob Wood became a friend and a major influence in there, painting very directly. And I paint with on a half sheet of watercolor paper with a big wide 1.5 inch brush, and I would do 80% of the painting with my big flat brush, and I can clean a painting in 1.5, 2 hours at the most. So it's a very quick process, transparent color. But I do, and I learned this from the Whitney workshops, and I do it to this day. I carry a sketchbook, and I make 3 or 4 quick little value plans using gray markers, a 20, 40, 60% gray marker, and I can do those in 3 or 4 minutes. So here I have established a design. I pick the best of those designs, I do in a matter of minutes, and a value plan with the gray markers, and it's in proportion to my watercolor paper. So it's an easy, just a vertical and a horizontal line through the sketch, transfer that to my paper, vertical and a horizontal line. And there I have my painting. Then it's just a matter of making the color decisions. I have my design already established. So it's a process that I use to this day.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well,
And one
And
of
I
the
taught,
things,
when I taught at the art league, I said, I guarantee you, you'll walk out of here every session with a finished painting, which they did.
and and just as there are photographs, a few photographs in the book of the before and the after with my work, we have some of Ward's preliminary
That was
sketches.
interesting. Our book designer selected my black and white sketches to put throughout the book. And I thought, well, that was that's interesting that she did that. I thought that was great.
fantastic. Well, I don't know. I'm excited to see this book. Holly, would you mind sharing the show with us so we can take a peek inside?
Okay, here we are. This is, since the name of your show is Between the Covers, this is the front cover. And see, what's so amazing is that here is Ward's Long Island City that started our relationship.
Right.
Now, I created this 42nd Street
Oh, wow.
long before I knew Ward Hooper.
Isn't that wild?
And look at the tonality.
I see that. No
I mean,
wonder
see,
you two had to meet.
And this is just the prelude to the parallel perspectives, because Ward and I discovered that we had so many parallels in our lives before we met. Ward wanted his race day in the exhibit when we had our debut exhibit at the Art League in 2015. And he said, Holly, do you have any sailboats? And I'm thinking, I don't normally do sailboats. But
She looked long and hard.
But in 2008, I was photographing in Nova Scotia and came upon this sailboat. What happened? What happened here? This sail, this,
oh, there we go.
Right, here we are. Oops. This sailboat, the sailing camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hunted up my sailboat photographs, and then I spent 2 or 3 weeks working to develop this. And Ward and I would talk daily if we weren't seeing each other. And he'd say, well, how are you doing? I'm saying, this is tough, Ward. You have really given me the challenge. And that's one of the things that
this was one of many challenges I presented to Holly through the years.
Yes, but the challenges were mutual.
Yes, indeed.
He was challenging me and I was challenging him. Very exciting. Before we had to isolate, we met and signed the contract with the printer that our publisher had arranged for the book to be printed by. So I took a selfie. I guess you call it it's a bothy. It's not a selfie. It's a bothy. And in 2019, we had the Art of Collaboration, which was an open call that was inspired by Ward's and my collaboration. The seeds for this were planted in 2017 and 2018. Okay. And the Islip Art Museum had no idea what kind of a response we would get, because we were asking artists to step out of their solitude and get together with another artist or two and see what they created. And the response was absolutely fabulous. But here again, there was no known destination other than we were having an exhibit. We had no idea what the response was going to bring, and it was marvelous. And here are Ward and me at the museum.
Yeah.
So this is the very first painting.
That's the beginning.
That's the painting that started.
Long Island, yes. And then here's my Long Island.
That was Holly's response. And I said, oh, look at the shapes, the verticals, horizontals, and
yes, absolutely.
This is really interesting. This is by way of design.
And the crazy thing is, I shot this through the windshield. Somebody else was driving up the New Jersey Turnpike.
Mm-hmm.
And something just made me need to use that as a starting point and create something from it.
Right, right. Oh, are these the tulips?
Yes, these were Ward's tulips
That was
from his.
a class session at the Art League, and I posted that, and Holly picked up on that with a response. And then,
Yes.
oh,
There
this
we
was
go.
early on in our relationship.
right.
So
Right,
we,
and this was before
were
we
just
this was
responding
before
to
we
each
met
other.
face to face.
Really?
So
Wow.
yes, so when I first met Ward, I said to myself, "Okay, Holly, don't be overpowering. Just
Hard to do for Holly.
just let Ward take you around." And his house, which is enormous, on every flat surface were paintings that he did, that he was showing me, just no exaggeration,
Literally,
hundreds and hundreds of
yes.
paintings. So as he is showing me these paintings, I'm saying, I have something like that. I have something like that. And
Wow.
the following week, I brought back my work. So here is one of Ward's works,
Mhm.
and here's mine.
Wow. Look at that.
Before, you have to understand, this is before we met.
Right. You hadn't seen anything yet.
Right.
Okay, so here is one of Ward's lighthouse paintings,
Mm-hmm.
That was a demo I did for the Art League. Yeah.
and there's mine.
Wow.
Okay, but it gets better. You're gonna have to buy the
Right.
book.
Yeah. So
Okay,
here we
so-
go. Right. I say, so
I-
every week Holly was responding, and I was getting more and more impressed with the similarity. So,
Wow.
wow, we
Okay,
really
so-
have something.
So I had created this.
Okay. This is Holly. Ah, look at that.
I mean, we just have such an affinity for color.
Mhm.
It's color and light and
And-
love of the landscape.
And shapes, right? Oh, this is a friend of mine in my friend's backyard.
Now, this was painting in the garden with Joan that
Right.
Ward had done. And years earlier, when I was in Monet's garden in Giverny, where I have spent weeks at a time, I happened to create something from a painter who was painting in the garden.
Wow.
Now this is Eastport, Maine, where my folks came from. Last U.S. town on the coast.
So Ward is saying, when we're planning out our exhibit, and just to let you know, we had many more paired images that fit the gallery. The 2,800 square foot gallery wasn't large enough to hold
Right, yeah.
the work that we amassed.
We had a lot of more to offer.
So Ward says, Holly, do you have anything red? Any red buildings? Well, this is what's so crazy.
Wow.
I was in Milwaukee and on a baseball tour. That was when I was trying to be like a regular person and hang out with regular friends and get into baseball. So I took a baseball tour with them, with my camera, of course, and I photographed this and I created my image from it. So when Ward's family came down for our debut exhibit,
Yeah.
his daughter and her boyfriend lived in Minneapolis. And they right away said, "Oh, Holly, you photographed the Balspar building." I had no idea what it was. I just liked the shapes and the patterns.
Of course. It's beautiful.
So after we spent a few weeks just looking at Ward's artwork and bringing up my artwork that was similar, Ward said, "Why don't I take you to all of the places
So
that..."
this was the beginning, right downtown. I started out with Holly drove when I was the guide. So I took it.
Yes.
This was the beginning. This is the house right downtown in Northport, a Victorian house.
Mm-hmm.
So he took me here, and this is a photograph of the house,
Right.
and this is what I created.
Oh, beautiful.
And then
Ah, very nice.
when we were getting ready for the debut exhibit, Greg Blank from FiOS TV simulated
Mm-hmm.
the experience that we had when Ward took me to the Victorian house. So here we are.
Yeah.
And then here we are, like I'm photographing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this was the very beginning of our adventure. And
Nice.
this is another house in Northport, right at the harbor.
Yeah, this is down at Scudder Beach. So on the very first day, and it was so exciting because Ward would write out the itinerary,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would tell me where to turn and where to drive. So the very first day, he took me to the Victorian house and then down to Scudder Beach. And this was the painting that he did of the caretaker's cottage many years earlier. And this is what I created.
That is the house as it
Wow.
exists. Right?
And there's Ward.
My iPad.
Action shot. I love it.
Then he took me to Crab Meadow.
Another favorite
Beautiful.
spot.
And these are all new places to me. And I didn't need a passport. I didn't need airline tickets. All I needed to do was make sure that
Well,
I
this
had a
is the
full tank
wonderful thing
pass.
about living in this town of Northport. It's easy, and this is in 5 minutes of my house. So all these wonderful locations are
Fantastic.
easily accessible.
And historically, the North Shore of Long Island was a magnet for many artists throughout history. Long Island has an amazing history of artists on Long Island, but we haven't gotten there yet. So Ward took me to Crab Meadow, and here you can see he photographed
That's
me.
the location, right there. God, Holly.
And this is what I created
Oh, wow.
from Crab Meadow. And this, this unto itself was a very, it's all creative bushwhacking. Just like every painting starts from scratch. Every one of these images of mine started from scratch because I wanted it, but there were things I needed to get rid of, and I didn't care for the sky, so I had to import sky from somewhere else into it. And then I realized, now that I have a new sky, I need to create a reflection in the little rivulet here. It was just such a creative adventure.
Wow.
And
Well,
then
this is a favorite place out in Kings Park, called the Bluffs, and it's a good view of the harbor, and it's up high, and it's a favorite location for dog lovers and motorcyclists. But it's a great view.
when Ward took me to the Bluffs and I'm looking down, my reaction was, I had no idea we have bluffs on Long Island. So, and then this was my creation.
Beautiful.
And there Ward is looking down.
That's the spot.
That's one of the things that during our collaboration, he would be unaware if I was photographing him, and I would be unaware. But it was just so wonderful because it was just such a tremendous give and take.
Nice.
And this is Eaton's Neck.
That's another favorite place. I was painting out there. Yeah, and that's Holly's take on it.
Beautiful.
And the tide was coming in, and it was coming up to my ankles. I kept moving my easel up shore. I took this upon him.
Nice.
Oh, this is the
Seymour's
famous
Boatyard.
Seymour's working boatyard. Dates back to the 1800s and still a working boatyard today.
Oh,
Right in
And it is
Northport.
absolutely the most scenic boatyard on
Yeah,
Long Island. I mean, not that I've seen all the boatyards on Long Island, but it's gorgeous.
it's a great spot. I've done
This
it many,
is
many
one of-
times.
So this is one of Ward's paintings of the boatyard, and that's my creation.
oh, beautiful.
And so this
Oh, this
shows
is lovely.
everybody the way our exhibit debut was mounted. Ward's and my paired works
Mhm.
with a film strip of photos from the location.
Nice.
So viewers could see what inspired us and how we created our
Yeah, that
work.
makes it so much more interesting when you can see the actual location photo
Mhm.
and our interpretations.
Oh, this is
Okay,
beautiful.
here's Ward's painting of Makima Beach. And very interestingly, he decided, because artists can make choices, he
Yeah.
decided to eliminate the
The
smokestacks.
background, which Holly will show, that's what it actually looks
I
like.
was
Ah,
We have
determined
the
to
power,
remove the stacks.
the lifeless stacks behind us,
ah,
which I never paint. I always remove them.
Well, you know, I have always been environmentally inclined. And just as our talk today is unscripted, it's all extemporaneous. When PBS Channel 21 interviewed me in, I don't know, 1999 or something, I said, my photography speaks for Mother Nature because she has no voice. I want my work to speak environmentally, to preserve and protect her. So everything that I've done, from documentary on to my photoliminalism, has an environmental purpose. I'm very much an environmentalist.
wonderful.
So Cove Beach.
This is in Huntington. I like the stack houses. That's another favorite spot. And Holly's take on the same, that's a
Yeah,
little
but
beach down there.
it was such a glorious day when Ward took me here that this is what I focused on.
Wow.
My beachy keen.
Yeah, I love that time. Oh, this is out in Kings Park. I love this spot. It was kayak rentals. It was an interesting location. And as I was painting, and you'll see the little figure on the left, that was the owner, came out and gave me a background. He said he transported the house, had been floated over from Connecticut originally, and it was
Really?
kayak rentals.
Wow. That's history.
But of course, many years later, it was no longer kayaks rental.
Yeah.
And I just was very taken by the pattern of the fencing. So this is what I created from that location.
Okay.
Now, Ward photographed me at Cold Spring Harbor Pond.
Mhm.
And during this time, I was sharing the work that Ward and I were amassing with some colleagues. And one person in particular said, Holly, this is amazing what you and Ward are doing. Why don't you see how what you're doing ties in with art history on Long Island?
Nice.
And as soon as he said that to me, I thought, oh my goodness, Arthur Dove and Helen Tor.
Well, that's
Why
coming
didn't I
out,
think of
yeah.
that before?
Okay.
They
Right.
sailed into
Yeah.
Cold Spring Harbor, and this is where they settled. So Ward had created Cold Spring Harbor Pond. This is what I created. And after researching Arthur Dove and Helen Tor, I changed the name of mine to Indian Summer in homage of them.
Oh,
Okay, next Ward took me to Condrey Hall.
okay.
And he said, Holly, I'm going to sit in the car and sketch. You walk all the way down to the water. He explained how he used to paint the back of Condrey Hall.
It has a sweeping lawn, acres and acres of green lawn, dog lover's delight. So,
And about an hour later, I tromped up the hill, managed to avoid all of the dogs. So Ward photographed me photographing
That's the front of the
Condrey
building.
Hall, but I created this.
Oh, nice.
And of course, the front, the facade.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I'm going to tell you, this was an epiphany, because for all of the weeks that Ward had been inspiring me by taking me to these places that had inspired him years ago,
Mm-hmm.
when he saw this creation that I made, he said, I'm going to paint again.
Oh,
Well, I hadn't been painting because of the loss of my wife, and it was a long recovery period. But Holly, yes, I got back into it.
oh, wonderful. And
So he painted this. It was like, oh, it was like, thank you so much. I felt like,
And I
Even
don't
though
do complicated
even though
architectural
I knew-
subjects, but this was a challenge.
no, I'll bet. I'll bet.
yeah, but it's like, I knew that by having him introduce me to all these places, he was revisiting the past. But now he was in the present and he was actively creating. And that was marvelous. So these two pieces were in our debut exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took me to
This was a
Asheville.
wonderful day out at Eaton's Neck. We
It was
discovered these
just-
boys out there on swimming
to
off this little
see-
bridge.
To see the light and the shadow on their wonderful young bodies. Oh, it was marvelous. And neither Ward nor I use people for important structural parts of our imagery.
Which is interesting. How
This
we
is
both
what
do
I
it, yeah.
created.
Oh,
And I got rid of, just to have a positive and good flow of negative space.
yes.
That was my image. And this is what Ward created.
Oh, wow.
But the fun story of this is,
Yeah.
Ward did one painting. And it's like, oh, I'm not that happy with it. So he did another painting,
Yeah, well, it
this one.
was okay.
And yeah, better, way better than okay. So it is getting time to publicize our debut exhibit at the Art League. And I hear from the publicity coordinator at the Art League that Steve Parks is going to write about our debut, and he wants our Boys of Summer. So I called up Ward and I said, Ward, Newsday wants your Boys of Summer with my Boys of Summer. Get it matted and framed. It doesn't matter what you think, it's going in the exhibit. And it was, and it's in our book, and it's marvelous.
Yeah,
So here is
Oh, look at that. Okay.
it
the
was-
article.
it was-
Now here is the Dove Tour Cottage. So
which, yeah,
I mentioned to Ward, there were these collaborators. There was this relationship between Arthur Dove and Helen Tour, who lived and worked right here on Long Island, where you're taking me to all these places 75 years before us.
Wow.
And Ward says, I'll take you to their house.
Oh my gosh.
I knew the house, but I didn't know the history. But which Charlie was aware of.
There we go.
So, this
And
is what
it's-
I created.
It's maintained by the Heckscher Museum.
And this is what Ward created.
Oh, very nice.
But this is the best.
Ah,
Ward painted me photographing the house, right down to my tie-dye sneakers and my blue jacket. And I thought this morning, here are my tie-dye sneakers.
oh, wow. Fabulous.
Yeah, right.
See?
I see them.
And here's my blue jacket. And this blue jacket was in Antarctica, it was in Easter Island, it was in Galapagos, it was chasing the gray whales in Baja. That blue jacket was all over the world, and it will never be separated from me. So this is really, I mean, I cried when he gave it to me, and now it's matted and framed, and it hangs in my kitchen. I see it every time I sit down at the table to eat, and it is just too special. But that's what Ward is, and that's what our relationship is. It's just incredible.
Yes, it is incredible, right? Here we are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
This
here's
goes
an early
way back.
picture of the cottage. And there's Arthur Dove and Helen
are.
Tour.
Love these antique photos.
Okay, so all during this time, I'm mentioning to Ward, Dove and Tour, Dove and Tour. And Ward he says, Holly, we have something so great going here with what we're doing. Do we really need them? And I said, well, Ward, here's your painting of race day. And here's my, okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself.
Yeah, right.
Yep, sorry. Okay, let's erase that. Okay, Ward wanted race day in the exhibit, and then I created that, which was a wonderful challenge. And even the New York Times covered us, as well as many other media, and our Boys of Summer.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are at the Art League after the exhibit was hung and we were kind of like supervising it.
Huh?
And the invite card to our debut exhibit.
Beautiful.
And the reception.
And that was a talk.
Which was a knockout, just unbelievable. And the following week, we had a gallery talk, a slide talk of our process that was fantastic. And then shortly after that, we were invited to exhibit at the MacArthur Airport.
Wow.
And here we are. But the crazy thing, it's like what's so serendipitous. Who should be passing through MacArthur Airport but a neighbor of Arthur Dove's son, Bill, who saw our work, left us a note in our guest book and said our work was wonderful.
Oh,
I mean, it's just
wonderful.
Just crazy. So we continued to...
That's a Nissaquag, that's an acrylic. I do acrylics occasionally, not often, but occasionally.
Okay.
On canvas.
And that's mine. And then we were out in Setauket, and you can see.
I'm sketching with my markers.
And he did the Mill Pond Bridge. And that was my rendition of Mill Pond Bridge. And we did
this is a mill.
Stony Brook Mill.
A working mill.
Oh.
In Stony Brook.
And that was mine. And here comes photoliminalism. Finally, all of the stretching and going out and just creating outside the box, like just kind of like no platform of established creativity, completely innovative, not replicative. So much art today is replication of that which has been done, but I was treading new territory. Now I don't know, 2010, every January I'd go to Sanibel and photograph sunsets.
Oh, okay.
And this was a photo collage that I created from a sunset years before discovering parallels with Dove and Tour. And then when I'm researching Arthur Dove's work, it's like, oh my goodness, look at the uncanny similarity.
But it continues.
Oh, it sure does. And so here, environmental work, this took about 10 or 12 years to create. Originally, it was this dystopian universe where these encroaching fuel tanks are going to take over the agriculture. And I've been so distressed over these things that I decided to bring Vincent van Gogh's Crows Over the Wheat Field into my work.
Nice.
And this was created, finally finished in 2016 after about 10 years of work.
Striking.
That to show the sense of nature and the agricultural landscape. Worked on this during our collaboration. Here's Ward's farm landscape that he had done previously, but ties right in. I found this work by Arthur Dove, which is also of the agrarian landscape.
Okay.
So there was another similarity, our connection to being inspired by farmlands.
Oh,
And I found this by Arthur Dove.
Oh, wow. Oh.
And there was mine that I did in 1997, even before any of, before any of this was thought of. Okay, so Ward is still not certain how important Dove and Torr's parallels are to us until I showed him
Yeah,
this painting
then I was convinced. Yeah, right. Yeah.
of his sailboats taken in Centerport and Ward's.
Nice.
So when Ward saw the similarity, he said, okay, Holly, we're going to go with parallel to Dove and Torr. So
He convinced you.
there you have it.
Yeah.
And then he painted me, see the tie-dye sneakers, and then he superimposed my photo collage.
Oh.
And
There's
I
Ward's
have
work.
I'm working
sketching.
in my crowded studio, paints, surrounded by paints, brushes, paper.
Hey, they're your friends.
Absolutely.
And here we were at the Selena Gallery at Long Island University in Brooklyn. Our exhibition was invited to cross over the bridge and be hung there.
Yeah, lovely gallery.
And there we are with the dean and with the gallery director and art professor.
Beautiful.
Talking to a student.
Yeah,
There's some of
beautiful, beautiful gallery.
exhibit space. So Ward photographed me here. I photographed him sketching here.
Sketching.
Ah, look at that.
That's a sketch of Centerport.
Yeah, and he was sketching me coming back. I didn't know where he guided me to, but I had created this and I wanted to go back. And all I could say, Ward, it was this narrow, windy road with water and
I knew exactly where it was. I said, oh yeah, that's Centerport.
And while Ward was taking me into his locations of inspiration, I stretched Ward and introduced him to one of my favorite areas of inspiration, the Bayard Cutting Arboretum.
Oh, beautiful.
So here's my manor house, and there's Ward's, and there's my barn on the Bayard Cutting grounds.
Yeah, interesting.
And there's Ward's. And then here we have Marine Supply at Sag Harbor and Ward's painting. And all of these things are new.
These are new.
This is all new work.
I'm exploring different approaches, even at this age, challenging myself.
And here, okay, so my Morning on Main and Ward's painting.
Oh.
And he couldn't go to Cuba with me.
No.
But in spirit, he was with me. And he was so taken by this.
I love the colors and the busyness of the street, the people, beautiful.
That he made this sketch. I brought him back a handmade.
That's only about 4 inches by 5 inches. It's a little sketch.
But it was handmade paper from the manor.
Yeah, that Holly brought back. It was interesting.
And there we are at the Islip Art Museum after, I guess that's the symposium.
Yeah.
Art of Collaboration. And this is,
right.
Go ahead, Ward.
Well, this is a recent one I did. It was um, based on an adventure from many years ago. Old Ed Whitney took us down to Jamaica Bay, and
Oh,
there were
okay.
these houses, looked like deserted houses way out in the distance, and I explored it. And no, they were homeless people had discovered homes. So I thought, well, what an interesting subject. So I painted it with a city skyline in the background across Jamaica Bay. But I thought it was interesting. It says, stay
Absolutely.
out and interesting.
And this painting is the final image of the Art at 50 Plus exhibit that was sponsored by AARP that I've curated. It's a virtual exhibit. The reception is going to be October 4th, and it's on the Islip Arts Live YouTube video channel. And it's for artists throughout New York State, from dabblers to lifelong artists. And the theme is New Beginnings. And it is the most inspirational, positive force of capture of the times that we are living in. 100 artists from the state I selected to be part of this exhibit. And this painting is part of it.
Oh, wonderful.
So here is Ward. I was getting ready to leave, and he had received this package from a paint company.
I love getting art supplies.
And I said, you better open it up. I want to see what you're getting and take a picture of you before I leave.
Well, I am so thrilled Ward is back painting. Now, and here's Holly hard at work.
And yes, Ward had stayed over after our exhibit at reception at the Long Island University in Brooklyn. And in the morning, he took some pictures of me at the computer.
Yeah, that's fun.
Because most of the time, I would go up to visit him. So here was an opportunity.
Okay, so this was a little change.
Pardon me?
This was a flip that he came to visit you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And he
Yeah.
stayed overnight.
Yeah.
And here's our back cover.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Wow. Fantastic. Boy, did we get a preview.
Well, that's our
Yes,
journey.
you know what? It's
And our journey
I think we got
continues.
much more than a preview, boy.
Yes,
I feel
there's-
like I just got a private showing at a gallery with a
yeah, but there's so much more, because what's so special about our book that was designed by the renowned designer Bonnie Bryant. She is an award-winning book designer. It's like when I said to Ward, we've got Bonnie Bryant doing our book
Oh, nice.
design. I said, it's like going fishing for the first time and catching a big one. It was,
Yeah.
it was just incredible. But we have a dialogue that runs through the pages.
Mhm.
So the reader has a chance to become part of our conversation.
Nice.
It's a very intimate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a large format. It's 12 inches by 9 inches. So it's a
big book.
It's a really large, great reproductions. And,
Oh my goodness. Well, I love the whole story. The fact that you two were leading parallel lives with all of this art being created without you knowing each other, and about how the meeting of the two of you promoted Ward getting back into painting after leaving it. I love the story behind the art. The art is stunning. The art is absolutely stunning, but the story behind the art is just so amazing and providential. I mean, all these things. I can't believe the providence of the two of you meeting and discovering, due to social media, how much you had in common.
It's almost, I don't want to be spooky. It's almost as though we were destined. Like all of these things had to take place before
I believe that.
we met and
Yes, in the big scheme of things, I agree. Yes.
Yes, No, I agree with that. That doesn't sound too woo-woo to me, Holly. But I have to ask, what's next? What's next? Because this is too good to, and Ward got a whole new shipment of paints. I saw that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, he is
I
painting.
had my big drawing table, my studio upstairs, but I have a large room down here, and I had my daughter who was living with me, and Emily and her boyfriend, and I had to move my drawing table right downstairs. So every morning I'm at it after breakfast,
All
and I'm
right.
painting a painting every day.
Ward
Yeah.
has so many new paintings. And what's next? A second edition with new work.
Yeah, Holly, I like your
I like the way
projection.
that sounds. I like the way that sounds. Well, we'll definitely have to have you back on when you have the second edition so we can get.
Thank you, Stephanie. Will be our pleasure.
Now, remind me where we can tell everyone to buy the book, but there's also these exhibitions, and I know you're going to give me some links so I can put them in with the show.
Sure.
Well, yeah, people can go to the Huntington Book Review
Okay.
website. I know that they're ordering from Simon & Schuster, and at some point after the books come in,
It's
Ward
October
and I
8th,
will,
6th is the
with
release date,
social
October 6th.
distancing,
Oh,
going
yes.
fine. But it's available on Amazon and Indie and Simon & Schuster and Books A Million. It's on all of the book sites.
Fantastic, because now that we've gotten our preview, we want the big book in our hands so that we can savor each picture. I don't know if this is a very unfair question to ask, but after seeing so many beautiful works of art, Ward, do you have a favorite?
A favorite? Oh, that's a really difficult question.
I know, and an
I
unfair
think
one too.
the one that you see, two favorites, the boats in the harbor, which is on the cover, and also where we initially started out with the right in the train yards in Long Island City. That's a favorite, I think, also.
All right, Holly, how about you?
And Holly?
You know, it's interesting that you're saying that, because people used to say to me after, I've been to Antarctica and Galapagos, and my bodies of work are with Molloy College, but people would say to me, what's the best place you've ever visited? And I can't say that, because each location, each of my works is unique and is a creative experience unto
It's
itself.
right. She's taking the words out of my mouth. See, we think alike, exactly alike.
So
Right on.
it's, what is my favorite work that I've ever done? I guess it would be whichever one I was looking at the moment, but
Okay.
subject to change, because it's a woman's prerogative.
Absolutely. But I think most of my work, I paint on location, and you're so caught up in the moment, and you're caught up with the harbor and the sounds of the harbor. So it's the whole experience put together, and that makes it very special. And some bright sun, it could be a light of coming through. A fall day is wonderful. Each and every experience outing is a special one and
Well,
memorable.
one thing you certainly gave me, and I'm sure all of our viewers, so many of the places that you depicted are places that we might pass in a day, but we got to see them through your eyes.
Very good. That's yeah.
That's
I so appreciated, for example, the one on the bluff. And I am sure that I have stood in a place just like that and never once appreciated as much as I did now, seeing it through your.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if Holly has it there, but a recent one I did right in my neighborhood, a busy 25A where thousands of cars go by, but there's a little store called Sid Meats, an iconic little shop has been there for 40 years. And I did a painting of that with
Right,
the
and
houses in the
that
background.
painting,
So that was interesting.
that painting is in the book, in the
It's
chapter
in the book.
that's
Yeah,
called
right. Yeah.
that's called resilience. You know, well, Dorothea Lange, the photographer who is renowned for photographing the Okies during the Depression, she had said, the camera is a tool that helps us to see. And there are so many people today who are walking around with their phones. They're just taking things, but they're not seeing. It's just, they're grabbing. And as artists,
No,
when
we are seeing with an artist's eye, right? You can see
when Ward
things.
and I look at something, we are studying it and responding and reacting to it to create from it. It, even though it's done in an intuitive manner, it requires
but Holly does the same
enormous
thing
amount
that
of skill.
she said early on. I don't know if she mentioned it, but as an artist, and when I do my sketches, I'm not a literal painter. I mean, I take what interests me, I take from that subject and I move things around or I leave things out to create my vision or what of interest there to me.
Well, that's what looking at your beautiful book is getting to see the world, not through our eyes that don't discern enough, but through your artist's eyes. And for that, I thank you so much. Not to mention a beautiful tour of Long Island to be.
Yes, that is something that is so extraordinary, that all of this has sprung predominantly from Long Island.
Absolutely.
It's a Long Island story.
Well, you two are absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Oh, I'm sure all of our viewers are going to want to run right out and grab a copy because we got a preview, but we want to savor it a little bit more. And Holly and Ward, thank you for joining me. And please come back when volume 2 is ready because we can't wait.
Promise. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Between the Covers. I hope you enjoyed the show.